Please just give him back to us. We'll forgive you. We won't bother you. We just want our baby boy.
He has little wavy hair and light brown hair, so soft, like a feather. With beautiful brown eyes. Beautiful baby, energetic, very playful, very happy.
Don't hurt him, and please feed him. Take care of him.
Please don't hurt him and protect him and just bring him back to his parents that love him.
Covering up a crime while letting the mother take the fall. Before this fades into just another missing child headline, stop and listen. Babies don't just vanish, lies do. And if this makes you uncomfortable, good. It should. But before we continue, subscribe. We've crossed 286 supporters and now we're pushing toward 500, then 1,000. Every subscription is a fingerprint in the fight for justice. Tell us, where are you watching from? Because this story demands voices louder than silence. Covering up a crime while letting the mother take the fall. Before this fades into just another missing child headline, stop and listen. Babies don't just vanish, lies do. And if this makes you uncomfortable, good. It should. But before we continue, subscribe. We've crossed 286 supporters and now we're pushing toward 500, then 1,000. Every subscription is a fingerprint in the fight for justice. Tell us, where are you watching from? Because this story demands voices louder than snow, don't just look at Rebecca. Look at him. The blurred figure in the background of police photos, sharpened by online investigators. The quiet man with the criminal past and lifeless eyes. That's Jake Harrow, Emanuel's father. And maybe the real reason Emanuel is gone. But who is Jake Harrow? And why has the media, the community, and even parts of law enforcement let him fade quietly into the background while all the outrage is directed at Rebecca? When you first see those images, the press conferences, the news interviews, Rebecca is front and center. She's crying, fumbling with words, breaking down under the pressure of cameras and questions. Every stumble, every contradiction in her story, became fuel for headlines labeling her a liar, a manipulator, even a monster. She was put under a microscope. But in the shadows, just behind her, stood him. Jake. Not pleading. Not panicking. Not even showing the urgency that you would expect from a father whose 7-month-old son had just vanished. His body language was cold, controlled, detached. No frantic energy. No visible grief. Just silence. Investigators noticed it. Online sleuths noticed it. And anyone who studies behavioral cues will tell you, silence can scream louder than tears. Because when someone truly innocent loses a child, they collapse. They beg. They shout into the void for help. But Jake? He looked like a man who already knew the ending of this story. And his past makes that silence even more chilling. This isn't speculation, it's documented fact. Jake Harrow has a conviction for child cruelty. A felony charge from 2023 that proves this is not a man unfamiliar with harming children. Not rumor. Not exaggeration. A real criminal history that should have set off alarms the moment Emanuel went missing. Think about that for a second. A father with a violent record against children, standing in the background, while his infant son vanishes, and yet the focus of blame is almost entirely on the mother. Why? Is it easier to blame Rebecca because she broke down, because she couldn't keep her story straight? Or is it harder for us, as a society, to accept that maybe the real danger was the quiet man no one wanted to look at? Police, to their credit, didn't ignore Jake completely. His car was seized and searched. Cadaver dogs were brought to his home. His property was examined for any trace of evidence. These are not the steps taken when investigators believe a child has simply been kidnapped by a stranger. These are the steps taken when investigators suspect foul play, when they fear the search has already shifted from rescue to recovery. And yet, despite all this, Jake has not been arrested. He has not been charged. He walks free. He blends back into the crowd. Almost as if silence, once again, is his shield. Meanwhile, the community was left to question everything. Neighbors whispered about seeing him burn trash behind his house. Rumors spread across social media. Whether those details are true or not almost doesn't matter, because the perception is already there. People don't see a grieving father anymore. They see a man with a dangerous past, a man whose face is blurred in photos because maybe he wants to stay hidden. The chilling part? His behavior fits patterns criminal profilers recognize. Detached. Emotionless. Controlled. Not the reactions of someone experiencing raw grief, but of someone managing an image. Someone who doesn't need to panic. Because he already knows what happened to Emanuel. Rebecca's contradictions, her breakdowns, her shaky interviews, they might not be signs of guilt. They might be signs of fear. Anyone who understands domestic abuse knows victims often lie, not to protect themselves, but to protect their abusers. If Jake crafted the kidnapping story, Rebecca may have just repeated it out of fear, terrified of what would happen if she went against him. So when we look back at those blurred images, sharpened by investigators and online communities, we see more than just a man standing in the background. We see the shadow of the truth. We see a father with a violent past. We see silence where there should have been screams. And that silence, that calculated stillness, might just be the most incriminating evidence of all. Because in cases like this, silence is not grief. Silence is not strength. Silence is premeditation. Rebecca broke down on camera, crying, confused, frantic. Jake. Detached. Silent. Controlled. Investigators don't call that grief. They call it premeditation. And his past? A felony conviction in 2023 for child cruelty. A man who once harmed a child, now at the center of another tragedy. On the surface, it looked like the story of a hysterical mother unraveling before the nation's eyes. Rebecca sobbed through interviews, her voice cracking, her words stumbling. She contradicted herself. She seemed lost. And in the court of public opinion, that was enough. People called her unstable, manipulative, guilty. They saw her emotions as proof she was lying. But while Rebecca was unraveling, Jake was composed. Too composed. He stood in silence, barely speaking, his face locked in a cold expression. No outbursts. No tears. No desperate pleas to bring Emanuel home. Just control. And control, investigators will tell you, can often be the mark of something darker. Behavioral analysts are trained to study these differences. They know how real grief looks, it's messy, chaotic, raw. Parents collapse in tears, they beg for answers, they make emotional appeals that come from a place of panic and pain. But Jake's reaction, or rather, his lack of reaction, raised alarms. Instead of grief, his behavior mirrored something else entirely, detachment. Calculation. Premeditation. And then there's his record. This is not just a man with a troubled past, it's a man with a documented history of violence against children. In 2023, Jake was convicted of felony child cruelty. Not a rumor. Not speculation. A court-proven crime. That single fact alone changes the entire lens through which this disappearance must be viewed. Because when you combine a violent history with a child's sudden disappearance, the story starts to shift. What once looked like a tragic accident, or even a mother's desperate lie, begins to resemble something much more chilling. A pattern. A man already capable of harming a child, now standing silently in the middle of another child's vanishing. Rebecca's breakdowns made her the easy target. Jake's silence made him invisible. But investigators know, silence does not equal innocence. In fact, in cases like this, it often points to the opposite. And so, the question becomes, was Rebecca's chaos a mask for guilt? Or was it the raw fear of a woman trapped beside a man with a history of cruelty, forced to carry the weight of a story she didn't write. Police weren't searching for a missing child anymore. They were looking for death. Cadaver dogs inside Jake's home. His car towed. A warrant for evidence. Rebecca may have lied, but was it guilt, or fear? Maybe she was repeating a story Jake forced her to tell. This was the moment everything changed. In the beginning, officers spoke about rescue. They urged the community to keep faith, to keep searching. Flyers were posted, vigils were held, and neighbors clung to the hope that baby Emanuel was still alive somewhere. But when cadaver dogs were brought to Jake's property, hope collapsed into dread. Those dogs are not trained to find missing children. They're trained to find the scent of death. It wasn't just the dogs. Investigators took Jake's car, an ordinary vehicle now turned into a potential crime scene. Every inch of it combed for DNA, fibers, traces of human remains. Then came the warrant. Officers entering Jake's home, not as visitors searching for a lost child, but as detectives hunting for evidence of a crime. These aren't small steps. They are the heaviest tools in law enforcement's arsenal. And police only reach for them when the story no longer adds up. Rebecca's words, the shifting timelines, the shaky alibis, the parking lot kidnapping claim, all of it made her look suspicious. But here's what many miss: people under control, under threat, under abuse, they lie. Not to protect themselves, but to protect the one who holds power over them. What if Rebecca's contradictions weren't the signs of a guilty woman, but the signs of a terrified one? What if every stumble, every false detail, was her echoing the script Jake whispered to her? If Jake crafted the story, Rebecca's role was to repeat it, to shield him, even as the walls closed in. And that possibility changes everything. Because suddenly, Rebecca isn't the manipulator, she's the manipulated. The lies don't point to her guilt, they point to his control. So when police marched cadaver dogs into Jake's house, when they towed his car, when they ripped apart his private spaces in search of death, it wasn't just procedure. It was a message. Investigators no longer believed in a rescue. They believed in a cover-up. And in the center of that cover-up stands Jake Harrow. Community trust shattered. Advocacy groups walked away. Even the Uvalde Foundation pulled out, saying the case lacked transparency. Rumors spread of Jake burning trash behind his home. People no longer saw a grieving father, they saw a man hiding the truth. For weeks, the community held vigils. They prayed. They lit candles for Emanuel. But something shifted. The support that once poured in for Rebecca and Jake began to dry up. Neighbors who once stood shoulder to shoulder in search parties started to step back, uneasy with the details that didn't make sense. At first, the community wanted to believe this was a tragedy, an innocent family ripped apart by a stranger's crime. But when police dogs searched Jake's house, when his car was hauled away, when his past felony for child cruelty became public knowledge, sympathy began to turn into suspicion. And then came the foundations, the advocacy groups, the organizations built to protect children. The very groups that had once promised to stand behind the family. One by one, they began pulling away. The most shocking blow came from the Uvalde Foundation, an organization that often steps in to support families in crisis. They didn't just step back quietly, they made a statement, saying they could no longer be involved in a case lacking transparency. In the world of advocacy, that's not a small decision. That's a warning shot. From there, the rumors grew louder. Some neighbors whispered about seeing Jake burning trash behind his home, fueling speculation that he was destroying evidence. Whether true or not, perception became reality. The community didn't see him as a desperate father anymore. They saw a man with something to hide. Posters once plastered across light poles began to disappear. Vigils grew smaller. People stopped speaking Emanuel's name at public gatherings. They weren't abandoning the child, they were abandoning their faith in Jake. And that loss of trust is often more powerful than any courtroom verdict. Because when the community turns, when friends and neighbors whisper in doubt, when the people who once prayed for you now cross the street to avoid you, it leaves a stain no lawyer, no press conference, no denial can ever wash away. Jake Harrow may not have been charged. He may not have been arrested. But in the eyes of the people who once believed him, he was already guilty of something. And as the weeks passed, the silence surrounding him only made that belief grow stronger. Emanuel was just 7 months old. He may not have been taken by a stranger, but by his own father. And the most chilling part? Jake Harrow is still free. No charges. No arrest. Walking among us. So here's the question, how long has Jake been hiding the truth? Days? Weeks? Longer? 7 months old. Barely learning to smile, barely discovering the world. Emanuel never had the chance to take his first steps, to speak his first words, to grow beyond the cradle. And yet, the world may never know what happened to him, not because of a stranger in the shadows, but because of the man who was supposed to protect him. His own father. Think about that. The figure who should have been Emanuel's protector may instead have been his greatest danger. And what makes it worse, what makes it haunting, is that Jake Harrow is not behind bars. He is not facing trial. He is out there, walking freely in a world where Emanuel is gone. That truth gnaws at the heart of this case. How can a child disappear, suspicion mount, evidence suggest a darker story, and yet the man at the center of it all continues life as if nothing happened? How long has Jake been hiding the truth? Days? Weeks? Or has it been longer? Has the cover-up been in place from the very beginning, scripted and rehearsed until even Rebecca believed it was the only version she could tell? This is the part where silence becomes deadly. Because every time Emanuel's story fades, every time we scroll past, every time the outrage dies down, Jake grows safer. His silence protects him. His history gets buried. And Emanuel becomes just another forgotten face on a missing child poster. But Emanuel cannot be forgotten. He cannot become another cold statistic. His story demands to be told, again and again, until justice finds him. Don't let silence bury Emanuel. Share his story. Keep the pressure on. This channel, Detective Max, isn't for entertainment, it's for justice. Because Emanuel's name cannot vanish. And neither should the truth. So here's the call, not just to watch, not just to listen, but to act. Share this video. Comment his name. Keep the conversation alive. Because justice doesn't start in a courtroom. It starts here, with you.